Couple of texts. This is from John, who is in Newton Le Willows, and describes himself as a 61-year-old British Jew. He writes, I wholly concur with Chuck Schumer. Since 2017, I have reluctantly declared Israel to be a pariah state, as Bibi, as Benjamin Netanyahu's nickname, aligned ever further with the far right within Likud and coalition parties. He is concluding his stated ambition in 1973 to eradicate all Palestinian Arabs from Gaza and the West Bank. I believe that Bibi's actions have made the whole world less safe for fellow Jews and a lethal place for Gazans. And this is from a friend of mine who is at work. So I don't know if I can say her name or not, but it is someone who I happen to know is Jewish and has a lot of family in Israel, and has been in touch with me quite a lot since October the 7th. I think it's coming now, as it's only now becoming apparent to Israelis after the shock of October the 7th begins to subside. Biden did everything he could to signal to Israelis that he is on their side, in many ways providing more comfort and confidence in the immediate aftermath of October the 7th than Netanyahu ever afforded, as he was focusing on protecting himself and avoiding responsibility for what happened, any responsibility for what happened. He and the Democrats laid the ground to speak directly to Israelis when the time has come, and now the time has come. That's a better introduction than I managed, actually. Has the time come for friends of Israel, whether the most senior Jewish statesman in America or just some gob on a stick on British radio? Has the time come to say you have to change course now? And changing course, of course, involves getting rid of Benjamin Netanyahu. I'll play you Schumer's speech, or one part of Schumer's speech once again, and then we will get the phone lines open. Or rather, then we'll start taking your calls. The phone lines are open. To be clear, the question is about what Chuck Schumer has said and what is happening. It's not about anything else today, however high your feelings may be running. The phone-in is about what Chuck Schumer has said, the possibility of challenging the facts as he relays them, and the consequences of his descriptions, if they are, as I believe them to be, true.
I have known Prime Minister Netanyahu for a very long time. While we have vehemently disagreed on many occasions, I will always respect his extraordinary bravery for Israel on the battlefield as a younger man. I believe in his heart he has his highest priority is the security of Israel. However, I also believe Prime Minister Netanyahu has lost his way by allowing his political survival to take the precedence over the best interests of Israel. He has put himself in coalition with far-right extremists like Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, and as a result, he has been too willing to tolerate the civilian toll in Gaza, which is pushing support for Israel worldwide to historic lows. Israel cannot survive if it becomes a pariah. As a lifelong supporter of Israel, it has become clear to me the Netanyahu coalition no longer fits the needs of Israel after October 7th. The world has changed radically since then, and the Israeli people are being stifled right now by a governing vision that is stuck in the past. At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel, at a time when so many Israelis have lost their confidence in the vision and direction of their government. Hamas and the Palestinians who support and tolerate their evil ways, radical right-wing Israelis in government and society, President Abbas, Prime Minister Netanyahu. These are the four obstacles to peace, and if we fail to overcome them, then Israel and the West Bank and Gaza will be trapped in the same violent state of affairs they've experienced for the last 75 years.
I don't know if this is true from Jude, but it might be. Chuck Schumer has lumped Netanyahu in the same grouping as Hamas. You just heard those words there. Only a politician of Jewish heritage could speak out in this way, and well done to him. It is just a fact. They are both barriers to peace. And when you say only a politician of Jewish heritage could speak out like this, I don't agree, but I don't think anybody else would speak with comparable impact. That's the point. And also, I think he's insulated from accusations of anti-Semitism or blood libel, which would have been levelled at anybody else previous to today, saying exactly what Chuck Schumer said on the floor of the Senate yesterday. It's a proper moment. I apologise if I'm not conveying that. I think I am, but just in case I'm not, then I will trust my callers to do so. Let's start in Israel. Let's start in Tel Aviv with Melvin. Melvin, what made you pick up the phone?
Well, I've been listening to your introduction, and as an Israeli, I totally agree that Mr. Netanyahu ought to be replaced. We have an election system. We have a proper democracy. In fact, it's probably too democratic sometimes.
That's a conversation for another day, I think.
Right. Assuming that the election delivers somebody new, I would welcome that. I abhor having people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in the government. However, I think there's a huge confusion. And the first thing is I resent Mr. Schumer creating an immoral equivalence between Hamas and Netanyahu. There is just no comparison, absolutely none. I also think
I can't speak for Chuck Schumer, but on the simple question of opposition to a two-state solution, there's quite a lot of common ground.
Well, there may be, but that does.
So that's not a moral. That's not a moral equivalence. That's a policy equivalence.
Okay, there might be a policy equivalence, perhaps. I'm not sure that in the foreseeable future, meaning your lifetimes and mine, that a Palestinian state is viable. I'm not sure that the Palestinians actually want it. If you listen to whether it's the people on the streets of New York and London or the Palestinians in this part of the world, they really want a state instead of Israel, not next door to Israel. And it's going to take a generation or two of re-education before that changes.
Well, I can't let you speak for supporters of the Palestinian state, Melvin, can I?
No, you can't. I'm not a supporter of a Palestinian state.
No, I know you're not, but you can't tell me or my listeners what the people who do want a Palestinian state really believe or really want. Only they can tell us that.
No, but I can tell you what I'm hearing from them.
Of course you can, but we all hear sometimes what we want to hear. There are plenty of people supportive of a two-state solution. You know there are.
Yes, in Europe and America, not around this part of the world.
Well, you just talked about the streets of London and New York a minute ago, so make your mind up with respect.
No, but I'm talking about from an Israeli point of view and a Middle Eastern point of view. Nobody really believes it's going to happen in our lifetimes.
That's a fair comment, but you can only speak for yourself. So if someone rings in and says the opposite, I will remind them that they can only speak for themselves. It's not always helpful to claim to have a sort of unique insight into the thinking of millions of people who aren't going to ring me today. But what about Schumer's...
my opinion.
I know you are. Your opinion of what other people think. What about Schumer's warning for Israel's survival? What about this relationship between pariah status and survival? Does that you think he's got that wrong as well? Does that not give you pause?
Well, I think it's a very extreme thing to say. Come on,
man. This is Chuck Schumer. 25 years of almost unquestioning support for Israel. It's got to be a moment of reflection, hasn't it?
I told you at the very beginning of this conversation, I'm really unhappy with the extreme government we have. I don't for a moment support it. I go out demonstrating every Saturday night against it. That does not mean Israel is a pariah state.
No, but the fear he has is that it is becoming one as a consequence of the actions that you're protesting against. That doesn't seem to me to be an enormous logical leap.
Well, I think that
Why are you protesting against it?
No, let me...
Of course I will, sorry.
Let me explain.
Yes, of course.
So people are confusing Netanyahu's government with support for the war that's going on. And I would say to you that people like me who want to see a new government, want to see a moderate government, however, we support the intention to destroy Hamas's military capability. We all hate, and I really mean this, we hate the death toll on both sides. We really do. But nobody's found a way to fight a war without innocent civilians dying. And, but nobody in Israel wants to see this war end until the...
you've done it again, haven't you? Because there are loads of people in Israel who've called for a ceasefire.
Well, I live here.
Well, I know you do, but
every
it doesn't
day,
mean
and
you
I
have it.
haven't found
Doesn't mean you have like a magic phone line into everybody's mind. You know that there's plenty of people in Israel calling for a ceasefire.
Well,
You can't say nobody in
respect,
Israel. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu says that we're never going to finish until it's completely over. The plausibility of that is probably zero. But I just, I don't want to go around in circles, Melvin, but you can't speak for everybody who wants a two-state solution any more than you can speak for every Israeli. And you don't want the war to end. So I'll ask you finally. No, well, of course you do. And you hear it on the street when you're surrounded by the people that are protesting with you. But the question I've asked everybody since this nightmare began is whenever people tell me that they abhor all deaths and they're very unhappy with all that, how many is too many?
I wouldn't put it that way. I would say
well, I am. That's what I'm asking you.
Okay, all right. I can't put a limit. How many was too many in Dresden?
Because Chuck Schumer can.
How many was too many in Hiroshima? Chuck Schumer can say what he likes. He's
yes,
an American.
And so can you. And so how many is too many?
I want the minimum deaths necessary
that ship has sailed.
Achieve what we have to achieve.
That ship has sailed. So how many is too many?
That ship has not sailed. We are still fighting. And at the moment, we're assuming that 80% of Hamas has been destroyed. We cannot allow the other 20% to set fire. It's like putting 80% of a fire out. The 20% remaining.
I'd like to talk to you more about that. I can't because of the timing. And I'd like to have a calm conversation about what seems to so many to be I think, to be generous, the epic naivety of believing that by killing everybody in Gaza, or killing thousands and thousands of people in Gaza, and hopefully catching all members of Hamas in that increasingly indiscriminate net, you'll somehow kill off the ideology. It's so obvious to so many people watching that if you kill someone's dad because he's in Hamas, they sign up for the same ideology, the same cause in that moment. But we'll have to have that conversation another day.